través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar.
We're finishing the testing for sound and screen at the moment. I will read the list of delegations that have connected and done the screen and sound test to confirm the quorum. We have Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Costa Rica, Dominica, Panama, Peru, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Suriname. We have quorum, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Eji. Bonjour à tous.
Colleagues, delegates, special guests, Secretary General, the issue of building resilience in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. I would first of all like to begin by thanking Ambassador Riyad Insan. I would like to thank him for having organized this meeting in order to facilitate a dialogue amongst member states and also to discuss the guidance that has been and is being suggested by experts on the subject for strategies so we can go forward to recover in the post-COVID-19 era while we build resilience in the wake of the COVID threats coming from COVID-19. This can have effect on our economy as well as on food. So it takes into account the threats to the four pillars of the organization: development, democracy, human rights, and security. Food security, health, productivity, tourism, education, trade, access to human rights, and others. So it is likely will weaken member states' capacity to be able to realize the 2030 development goals. I would like to submit to your consider objections. It is adopted. It is adopted. It's my pleasure to welcome once again our special guests who are renowned experts in their fields, and I thank them so much for having accepted the invitation. Sir George Alin, Director Emeritus of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, Mr. Manuel Otero, Director General, Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean, and Ms. Elizabeth Riley, Acting Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SIDEMA. Ambassador Riyad Insan, who is going to make his opening remarks. You have the floor, sir.
Distinguished colleagues and our specially invited speakers. Allow me to place on record, first of all, ability and indeed survival of many of our member states, building resilience in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has unleashed a series of unprecedented to save lives and to avoid overwhelming health systems, while necessary, has exacted a steep cost from which it will take a long time to recover. It is estimated that Latin America and the Caribbean will suffer one of the worst recessions in their history. In the Caribbean has experienced some of the worst effects. A recent ECLAC study predicts that the crisis will increase the number of people living in poverty to 4 to 5 million, or 34.7% of the region's population. The unemployment rate is expected to reach 11.5% in 2020, 37.7 million people out of jobs. And given that most women in developing countries are in small and medium-sized enterprises, which comprise 99% of all businesses and employ 75% of all workers in OAS member states, have been heavily hit by the crisis. I'm pleased to note that Dr. Justin Ram has been invited to address the subject of economic resilience in the post-COVID-19 context. It has also exacerbated other inequalities in the region through its disproportionate impact on the poor and most vulnerable, who have limited access to basic public services such as electricity, water, and sanitation, making it difficult for them to protect themselves against the virus. Further, and highlighting the need for them to be strengthened as vital to resuming and sustaining economic activity, especially in the tourism sector. We are honored to have with us today Sir George Alleyne, Director Emeritus of PAHO, who will address these challenges and other questions raised relating to the health sector. Mr. Co-Chair, distinguished colleagues, the pandemic has underscored the need to strengthen and provisions have to be made for the safety and continuity of the supply chain and distribution channels. The socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in Latin America and the Caribbean could potentially leave around 14 million vulnerable people in severe food insecurity this year, warranting